Hello there. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to this webinar on Crash Course of Using Social Media Effectively. My name's Stephen Osborne. I'm a volunteer with Hampshire Scouts Media and Communications team, and I'm basically here to help you demystify this particularly big area of communicating with our members and the general public. So during this webinar, I'm going to look at the four main types of social media that are used by Scouting. We're going to understand the features of these social media channels and know the different content that is suited to each. We're going to cover some easy top tips to make the most of your social media channels, groups and profiles. And we're going to give you some advice so you know where to go after this and understand some of the other features of other social media channels that can be used. So we're going to look at the basics of social media, and by that we mean about this. Content, which is what is on the site, is created by the users. That is the key thing of social media. It's not some editor way back off in a website or something like that. It's users themselves. It encourages people to share updates often, and it's used at the moment by 45 million people in the UK. Consider the population is about 65 billion at the moment. That's an enormous number of people who use some form of social media sometime. Now, they all have different features and different audiences and purposes. And on the bottom of the screen there, you can see what the logos of the most popular ones in the UK look like. Facebook is by far the biggest. It's got over 2 billion users. YouTube is the next biggest, 2 billion, although many people won't consider it a social media channel because it's YouTube, because it's video. But absolutely, it's user-generated content. It's not YouTube making it themselves. It's the different creators. Next, you've got Instagram, very popular with young people. We're going to get to that a bit more. Then you've got the messengers. You've got WhatsApp and you've got Messenger, very good at getting text communication between other people. You've got Twitter, which is very good at starting a conversation. Then you've got some of the new ones on the block. You've got TikTok, which very much focus on short videos and doing dance alongs and maybe doing a little comedy video. You've got Pinterest, which is all about collecting curations and collections of similar images and styles and ideas, basically. It's the equivalent of having a big notice board where you're sticking all the things on there. And then Snapchat, very much sort of not been taken over, but still quite popular with a lot of people. Okay, we've got lots of different types there, and I can't go into all the details on all of them all the time. Otherwise, this would stop being a crash course and just go into being a very detailed seminar. But instead, let's look at a few basics. What about text versus media? Well, for this, you can see straight away, Twitter, WhatsApp, Messenger, they are all text focused. You can just post just text and it'd be very successful. Media first, on the other hand, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, they all fall down if you don't have good media backing them up, whether that's pictures or video. Facebook sits somewhere between the two of them. You can have some very good text-only bits in there, but equally media will help supercharge it and give it that little bit of extra boost. Now, the other thing that people think about with social media is about privacy and things like that. So here's a breakdown of that. Things like Snapchat and WhatsApp and Messenger are all very private by nature. They tend to be with a close group of people who you already know. Meanwhile, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got things like Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest, which by default tend to be public. Now, I am making massive generalizations here. Some things like Twitter, for example, can be entirely private or entirely public, but most people will use them as everything is public and out in the open. Facebook can be a little bit of a mix in between, and there's options for both of those. Same with TikTok. But enough about the social media sites and what they are. Let's actually look, how do Scouts use them in the first place? And there's four main purposes. Communicating with our older members is probably the biggest one. Now, all of them will have a lower age limit, and most of them are 13 years of age. So things like Facebook groups can be very useful for communicating with Explorer Scouts, Scout Network, and adults. But also things like Instagram and TikTok can be very useful for targeting those particular youth groups. You might see, for example, some Explorer Scout units who have TikTok and who experiment with it as a way of engaging their young people, especially if a high proportion of them use it in the group. Next is communicating with parents. Now, if we think about Facebook groups as being one way of communicating with Explorer Scouts, then you're communicating with your Beaver Scouts via their parents as proxy in a parents Facebook group. The other big popular one is things like WhatsApp, and indeed things like the Scout Young Person Information Form will have a box which asks if you want to take permissions for collecting phone numbers to share with WhatsApp. On that note, bearing in mind with things like WhatsApp that anyone in a WhatsApp group can see the phone number of anyone else in a WhatsApp group. So do bear that in mind. It's something you should ask permission for. Next is showing others what we do and to help bring more people in to grow, be that young people or adults. This is so important, and it's one of the big ways in which we use social media, both us and other Scout organisations. So for this, Facebook page is the key. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, these are all the big platforms for doing that, some less than others. And then you've also got things like communicating with adult volunteers. Again, Facebook groups play a key part in that. Our own Hampshire Scout members group communicates with adult volunteers and is members only. Equally, you've got things like WhatsApp and Messenger, what we said before. Now, the two that I've mentioned so far we don't use so often is Snapchat and Pinterest. They can be useful. Things like Pinterest, for example, can be very useful for finding craft ideas or bushcraft ideas, but we don't tend to use them a lot in Scouts. Okay, now we're going to go into loads of different tips, but before we get carried away, there are some tips that hold true for every single social media. And we're going to start off with a big one, naming. You've got to pick a good, unique name. If you're called Phoenix Explorers, there may be several hundred Phoenix Explorers out there. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but there'll be more than one. If you've got something, make it specific. Don't call yourself just the 6th Scouts. Do it 6th Anywhere Scouts or 6th District Scouts. Use your full name if you need to. If you are, say, for example, Phoenix Explorers, then Phoenix Explorers dash and then the name of the place you are met. You want people to find yours easily. That also goes for example, calling it the name of your group rather than just saying, any town Scout HQ. It can be a little bit confusing sometimes. Next thing is keep profile pictures simple. Nearly every social media will have something for profile pictures that it will show next to the things that you post or tweet or whatever about. Now, these will need to work at incredibly small sizes, so keep them very simple. We tend to use a logo, which is kind of at the limits of what you can do, but something simple like just the fleur-de-lis symbol on its own can be a really powerful profile picture. Next, link what you're writing to our Scouts brand and our key message at the moment, things like Skills for Life. If you've got some young people toasting marshmallows over a fire or building something like that, then link it into that. Getting around a campfire and doing a good story, that's a skill for life. Put that in there. Also, link international campaigns if you have. If UK headquarters are putting a lot of time and effort promoting things like the Great Indoors or Race Around the World on TV, in print, online, wherever, piggyback off of that. Use it as well. It can be so important and useful. Finally, remember your scouting values when posting, things like integrity, respect, and care. Think about that and how that appears to a wider audience. And that can be very challenging, especially when you're dealing with negative comments. Respond to them with extreme caution. Often ignoring it is the best response. And remember, if you're approached by someone such as the media asking on a particular thing, then refer them up to headquarters. You can find the details on the Scout website and on the yellow card. Okay, let's start diving into some of the 4 big ways in which we use them in Scouts. First, starting off with Facebook pages. Okay, the need to know for Facebook. Pages are public. You don't need to be on Facebook to see them. They are kind of like the marketplace of the internet at the moment. Everyone has one. And if you don't have one, then it makes it very difficult for people to find you. They are used to tell a large group about what we do and why you should join. And people will see it when they visit your page or in their personal newsfeed, especially if they like it. So you'll often find pages for groups, for example, asking parents or members to like the page to go along with it. Now people can engage by reacting to it, commenting or sharing. You can see the buttons for those underneath our post on the screen there. And also if you press and hold or hover over the like button, you get some extra options as well to add that little bit of extra thing. Those are shown on the screen and left to right. They are like, love, haha, so laughter, found it funny, wow, normally for shock or surprise, sad, and anger. Now, the mix you get depends on what you've posted. If you've posted something that's very challenging, like our group, or we need major repairs in our building, for example, during a storm, you'll get a lot of sad and angry ones, for example. Whereas something that's maybe heartwarming, like something that one of your Scouts made, you'll get a lot of likes and loves. Generally speaking, you tend to get more of the reactions than you do comments and shares, but it depends on what you're posting. Now, as I've mentioned, there's some of the different things there. Pages can be really public as well. So every group should really have a Facebook page. It can be so important and can be so useful. Don't hobble yourself straight away when you're trying to grow by not having a Facebook page. They're really simple and easy. Now, things like a website, some people might think, I don't need a page, I've got a website. Yes, but websites are not so obvious about when was the last time they updated. Whereas if you've got a Facebook page that is updated semi-regularly, people can see that people care and they understand and they know. Make it easy for yourself for people to find you on the internet. Okay, next we're going to look at making an impact. And when you start join any page, the first thing you will see is a header image right at the top. Now, for any header image, and you'll hear me say this again and again, pictures of scouts work best here. Show them having fun, show them being active, taking part in adventures, doing the scout that we know and love. Now you can see, for example, we've got one here. We've got a scout who was at the Ferny Cross Mud Run back in March, back when things were very different. However, you'll notice that we can't actually tell from the picture alone that that person is a scout. We know they are because they're sort of having fun, they're sort of taking part in adventure, but people don't. So a useful tip, if it's not clear they're scouts, maybe they're not wearing a necker or something like that, then include a logo in the bottom corner, or even just the fleur-de-lis. Whichever you are doing, make sure that your picture is clear and fits well. There is no point you taking a picture that only works in portrait if you've got a header image that is in landscape form. Make sure it fits. Okay, and just underneath the header image bit, a little way down, is the About section. This is where you can throw those quick facts at people, where they can find out instantly who you are. It's really easy for visitors to find out where you are, where else they can find you, such as website or other social medias. It also includes a space for a good but short description. It will give you the option to go on for ages and ages, but people won't read it. Keep it short and snappy. You may want to mention where you cover if you're in a local area, for example, your catchment area, and mention about what we do, but try and talk to it in a down-to-earth way that mentions the skills. Now, I don't mean, for example, that scouting develops someone physically, emotionally, intellectually through skills such as first aid. And yes, we do, but that's a really formal way of doing it. That method of just saying what we do by taking the fundamentals works brilliantly on a trustee report or something that you're going to put out to the business community. But it's a bit naff when you're talking to the general public. People will switch off or won't understand it. Talking a down-to-earth way. One way of doing it is things like thinking big starts right here, or as we've just gone with there, every week we give more than 18,500 young people in Hampshire aged 6 to 25 the skills they need for life. What we do in a sentence, simple. Now, you've got your Facebook page set up, now you need the content. Now, it's an external audience, so make sure that you promote the good that we do, how much fun it is, and why people should join. Really, really hammer that message home. Avoid jargon and abbreviations. I mean, this goes for pretty much any social media you do, but we are really bad in scouting at abbreviating things and using jargon. Things like we will talk about a district commissioner or a DC. To people who are not in scouting, they won't understand what that is or what that is involved. So, for example, in media, when we talk to people outside the movement, we'll use phrases like lead volunteer for Andover, or we'll talk about the lead volunteer for Testwood Scouts. We'll keep it really grounded and we'll bring it right back to where we are as a place. We'll try and make it accessible to other people. Now, as a general tip, when you're posting things up there, more people will see your post if you include pictures. Now, that can vary in different shape. Again, you'll notice this is a picture from a Facebook post and it wasn't clear they were scouts, so we included a logo in the bottom of the corner. The other thing you can do is you can share relevant posts from others to your page to help make it a little bit easier for yourself. If, for example, headquarters or county or district have posted a beautiful picture to mark, for example, remembrance, there is no point you trying to recreate something yourself or just using something else. Take that, share it, add your own little comment on the top, and it will be just as powerful and make just as much impact and make it a bit easier for you. Plus, also, you're directing people to those other bigger posts, so then they might like that, for example. You might have a parent who says, oh, I didn't know the district had a site. I'll see what other people are doing. And that might be a way they can find about some of the wider opportunities. Okay, less about Facebook pages. Let's move on to something a bit more private. What about Facebook groups? This is very much a collection-based thing, and you'll have groups for various different things and various different people. They can vary a lot, but are often set as private groups, sometimes called closed groups. They used to be called closed. Now, people will engage in posts exactly the same way, but with a group, because often any members can post to those groups, it is often much more of a forum than a page. I see at the moment parent Facebook groups have become a brilliant way for parents and young people and leaders to share what they've been doing. A leader will put out an activity and the Beavers or Cubs or Scouts or whoever will get straight back in showing you what they've been doing right there. It can be an amazing community and it can really make things like scouting, especially at the moment, It can make scouting feel alive rather than just dormant. Now, the groups can often be used to target messages at members or parents of members and to specific groups. If you've got a group, for example, for young leaders in your district, it means you can target things like advice for them, events, mission dates, modules, these kind of things. They can be targeted directly at them. You can also set rules for the group, and you can set a question that new members can answer before they are admitted. The Hampshire Scouts members group, for example, will have a question, and unless you answer it, you won't be admitted because we won't know who you are. Even if we do know that you're part of Hampshire Scouts, we will wait until you've answered the question. That's normally good practice because it gets people to think about the purpose of the group. Now, just because it's a group, you still need to make an impact. They may be internally facing, but you've got to make that first impression vital. For a parent who's new to Scouts, that might be the very first thing they know about it. So include those things there. Now, as part of that, things like header images can be really useful to show a powerful picture. Don't leave it to something that's a bit naff or just shows like the inside of your HQ or something that is a bit boring. Make it powerful. Equally, in your about information, say who the group is for, and also include some details like who to contact or how to get involved. The reason I say this is, let's say you are a parent of a cub or someone who wants to be a cub and they don't know who to contact yet. They've searched in Facebook, they've found by some miracle the Facebook group for your cubs. If there is nothing in there about who it's for or why they should join, they may not even know they're in the right place. Include a link to your website if you've got it with some joining information, or a leader's email address maybe. But include some information for those who aren't in the group about how they can join. It's a really simple thing which can upscale so many of our Facebook groups very easily. Now, content is very much the same, but bearing in mind it can be much more targeted, and it can include things that wouldn't be appropriate to share publicly, such as if you're a group and you're meeting outside of the normal meeting place and you don't want people to find out where you are for safeguarding reasons, posting that detail to parents on a Facebook group will be much safer than posting it on a public Facebook page or an open group. Again, avoid jargon abbreviations and make sure you've got those pictures in there. They still work and still much easier when people are scrolling. When you're scrolling through your Facebook newsfeed, for example, Facebook will now prioritize things over groups more than pages these days. So having a good picture means that people might stop scrolling and pay attention to it. And also, sharing photos or video of activities can be really powerful to include parents in the group. Maybe it's just part of a parent rota, because we all know those parents that like to just drop their kids and then run and not engage us in any way. Those parents can be very difficult to work with, because when we need help to make Scouts run day to day, it can be incredibly difficult when that happens. If you share pictures and video of what we're doing, they know what it's like. They can see the amazing differences happening on young people. So when we ask for help, they might be more willing to step up. And equally, they might be more willing to see the fun involved in it, to see why we do it, and actually how it can often be more of a team effort. So those are some of the things you can put on Facebook groups. Now, from something a bit more mixed, let's go to something that is much more text-based, Twitter. Now, lots of people will know Twitter. It aims to drive a conversation, and it's normally entirely public. It can be private, but normally is entirely public. This can be very good at getting your message to a wide audience, especially because it can be the hotline to the media, and it can be a hotline to senior scouting volunteers. People like Tim Kidd, our UK Chief Commissioner, and other people in Team UK, Kester Sharp, Graham Hamilton, they will all be on Twitter. Equally, people like Bear Grylls' team can be on Twitter, as well as so many of our Scout ambassadors. It can also be useful for getting in contact with some of our staff. Matt Hyde is very active on Twitter as our CEO, so it can be very useful to contact him directly that way as well, and see what the people at the very top of Scouts are doing for us each day. Now, also mention the media. Every local journalist will normally pretty much have a profile on Twitter, because it can be very useful for them to find information fast. What is happening right now in the world, so they can react to it straight away. Much easier than seeing it on a website. A tweet will take seconds to put up, whereas a web page or a news article will take a little bit longer. Now, people will see things on Twitter if they follow you. So you will see, for example, on Twitter, it mentions how many people you follow and how many people follow you. People engage with tweets by replying, retweeting, liking, or sharing, and they're along the bottom in that order. Replying, they're replying to what they're saying and adding a comment. Retweeting is basically directly sharing it with your followers, so that that particular information will be seen by a wider group of people. Liking is that was in the tin, and sharing is a more private way of doing it, normally by direct message. Now, I've already mentioned a couple of terminology bits in there, so let's throw some jargon at you. Individual posts are called tweets. but you can add several linked together in something called a thread. When you go and compose a tweet, just next to the tweet button in the bottom right corner is a little plus button. If you click on that, it will add a line from your profile pictures you can see there, and it will add another tweet underneath it. And Twitter knows that is directly linked to something that's already happened and tends to group them together. Now, in your tweets, you can also include things called hashtags and handles. Hashtags connect your message to a wider conversation and makes it easier to find. You'll often find lots of tweets from Scouts include 1 or 2 hashtags. Normally, the Skills for Life hashtag is very useful. The volunteer hashtag can be useful, and things like U-shape. This one here about a community project to feed children during half term, for example, uses hashtag community. A handle is very useful as well. It's the way people can find you on Twitter, and it brings tweets to their attention. If you've done something really, really exciting, or you're getting back to Scouts for the first, face-to-face for the first time after the lockdown is over, maybe you want to shout about that, just at Hampshire Scouts, including there, and then we will see that tweet. If we think it's really, really good, we might then pick it up and retweet it and share it, or throw it to a wider audience to really show what's happened. Now, some handles are really obvious and they are just the name of the page. For example, Hampshire Scouts' handle is at Hampshire Scouts, just no space. But some of them have to be a bit shorter, so some of them may not be what you're expecting. For example, Hampshire Scouts Top Awards is a bit too long because Twitter relies on being short. So they are shortened it to at HS Top Awards. It can be useful to know just some of these and to have in the back of your head, and to, as a page, follow them straight away. Makes it more easy to pop up because it knows, oh, you follow that person. Now, of course, with any tweet, you want to make a splash. So when people visit you, again, header images, really, really important. They are thinner than Facebook and they focus on, so make it focus on young people having fun. For our Facebook header page, for example, we include a bit of text in there and the logo. Now, because the header image for this is really, really close to our profile picture and our bio, we don't include that. We just focus on the picture, just make it really, really important. Now, the bio straight underneath, it's only short. So things about 150 characters, if I remember correctly. You can link websites when you're here, but keep your bio to short and good description of what you do and where. Where are you? What do you do? What's our main benefit? You can use hashtags and handles in your bio. So some, for example, will identify themselves as part of at Hampshire Scouts to link into that wider movement. Now, when it comes to content, brevity is so key here. You've got to keep it short and snappy. Twitter has a character limit of 280 characters, and that is it. Any more when you run out, you have to go into a separate tweet or you have to leave it out. So keep it really, really short to the point. Again, it's nearly always public, so have it for an external audience. Focus on the real best bits and the opportunities, like we need a person from this, or can you help us in this way? Pictures and short video can attract attention, but it's not as vital as, say, on Facebook or even Instagram, as we're about to speak to in a moment. I will also mention briefly about retweeting. Retweeting messages from others that you want to amplify. So a good example of both types of retweeting can be seen on our picture here. The very first tweet that went out was the one from the Hampshire Scouts youth team saying thank you to someone for taking part in their recent virtual youth council. Now, that was retweeted by the County Youth Commissioner, Peter Marcus, who did a quote retweet on it. That means taking it and then adding your own little bit of text at the top. That's what he's done there. Now, we've then taken as Hampshire Scouts that entire thing and just done a normal retweet of it. We've just taken the entire message and just pushed it straight out as is. No need to add any comments. It means it will appear in other people's news feeds. Now, the other way to get better exposure is to tag people in them. And the reason that we say that is, but it brings it to their attention, like I mentioned about Hampshire Scouts already, if you're restarting, but also the Senior Scout volunteers. And if they like it and then they retweet it, their audience will see the same message, and it can be really powerful for that. Now, the final one I'm going to talk about is Instagram. Instagram can be a bit newer for some people. They may not understand it, but it's really, really important, especially because Instagram is very simple to use, but it can be intuitive if you're not expecting it. Now, the number one thing you need to know is pictures are king. Text is entirely secondary. If you've got a rubbish picture, no one is going to look at it. It's not going to get any traction at all. Instagram is very popular with young people. In fact, younger people tend to use it more than Facebook these days. And you can almost tell because a lot of people will tend to link things into it. It's one of the other benefits of Instagram. You can link it to a Facebook page. So if you post to Instagram, it'll post to your Facebook by default. They're both owned by the same company. It's also mobile first. So when you're uploading pictures, you'll do that on your phone. You can't actually upload pictures from the desktop version of Instagram. So something to keep in the back of your head. It's meant to be, I'm out walking, I'm out doing something. Oh, good picture, take a picture, put it straight on Instagram. Now, people engage with it by liking, commenting, and sharing. That's what those 3 icons on the post there make, with the heart, the speech bubble, and the paper airplane. And again, normally always focuses on external audiences and what we do, our very best selves. Now, depending on where you see it, posts will either appear in a newsfeed with the big picture and a small bit of text underneath, or even if you're looking at a profile of someone, the text won't be shown at all, and it will just be the picture. And you'll only get the text when you click on the picture and it's revealed alongside. So that's why we say pictures are so important, otherwise people just won't stop. Now, let's go on to the bio and about how you build that. Now, Instagram also uses handles as name, but it also doubles as your URL. So there's a couple of things that doesn't fit straight in there. Now, capital letters aren't allowed for some reason, even though they can be allowed in URLs, but also spaces are a big no-no for your username. So when you're using your handle, you've got to have something else instead. Now, lots of people will use an underscore. So you might, for example, be 6th _ NUtown _ Scouts as an example. Our one, for example, is Hampshire Scouts _, so make it a little bit different. Now, your bio underneath is only 150 characters, so you've really got to explain what you do in literally 1 sentence. That's it. You get nothing more. You can, of course, use hashtags and handles in there, but again, keeping it short is your big thing. We've gone with every week we give more than 18,500 young people in Hampshire, age 6-25, the skills they need for life. That is what we do in 1 sentence. Boom. Equally, you can have a link in there and it makes it really clear. It adds it in bold and includes it above. That link can be as long or short as it needs to, but it's good to have a link there somewhere. If you don't have your own website, then link it to headquarters instead. Okay, I've mentioned pictures are key, so you've got to make an impact with your picture. The feed will only show images with no text, so make sure you capture good quality pictures that focus on our young people as your main thing to do. The prettier the picture, the more traction it will get. It also tends to go with them in a square format, so you don't need to worry about getting them sort of portrait or landscape. It'll make sure it gets cropped down to a square. You can see in this picture, for example, we've had to crop out the leader to make sure the focus is on the young people, which is where it should be. Also, if it's not clear it's Scouts, then add a logo in the corners I've mentioned before. Especially when you're scrolling through Instagram, you want to be able to see instantly what it is. And if it's really clear it's a Scout thing through the logo, or it's very obviously a Scout in the picture, that will make it easier for people to join and to like it. Now, when we're talking about content for Twitter, for Instagram even, it's like external audience. Like Twitter, you can use the hashtags and handles in your text. Hashtags are used actually on Instagram way more than they are on Twitter. Let's say, for example, you've got a picture of a camp, it's got a campfire, tents, maybe even your dog with an echo on it near the fire. Now, people on Instagram will have loads of things. They will have hashtag tent, hashtag fire, hashtag bonfire, hashtag nice night, hashtag dog, hashtag dogs of Instagram. They will include loads of things in there because those are almost feeds in themselves. People go on things like dogs of Instagram, for example, to find like the pictures of all the best and cutest dogs on the internet. They will be there. So because of that, people will flock to them and they will find them. So tagging those into as many different ways as possible means that people who aren't following you will see what you like. The other thing to mention with Instagram is stories, which can be a little bit disintuitive and we don't tend to use them loads and loads. But they are a mobile first way to interact with your audience. They show up on your phone much better than they do on a computer. And they're really useful to get feedback through comments, through polls, through quick reactions. Keep it nice and snappy. Now, with anything that is social media, you can be often a bit lost at times because there are so many guides out there telling you what you should do, shouldn't do, etc. Now, where to find out more, apart from asking your young people or in your group, because there may be some experts there, we've got some social media guides from the Hampshire Brand Centre that are just there ready for you to use. That's at brand.hampshirescouts.org.uk. Scroll down to the bottom where you'll see a big teal box, and then there is a guide for each of the 4 main social media networks that we've covered today. Now, for those, you can take them away, use them. They are deliberately written for someone who is not used to social media, can hopefully pick them up and make them work straight away. I deliberately try to avoid jargon when I use them. Equally, the Scouts Brand Centre is a really useful thing to bookmark and have a note of because they have a load of images. You place and get localized logos, and you can have things like guidance on tone of voice can be found there as well. There's loads of things there, and they're always updating to it. I loved in particular all of the videos by the UK advisors and ambassadors to help kick off your AGM or your Zoom meeting or something similar. It can be really useful. Finally, if you do get stuck or you want a bit of particular advice or something, contact us, contact the Media and Communications team. We are here to help you with your communications and make them the best they can be. You can drop us an email at communications@hampshirescouts.org.uk and we're there for you. Thank you very much for listening to this webinar. I hope you found it useful and I hope you can now go away and get the best out of your social media. Thank you very much.